Voter fraud has been a major problem in the United States and as well in other countries. I heard from one of my friends going on in Niger, Africa, there has been extensive voter fraud and mail in ballots that have swayed the election in Niger, Africa. As well in Myanmar, there is some controversy going on there right now with their voting systems. But primarily, I'll focus on America. We have some voter fraud that has come up, and I believe that voter ID would be a good thing to implement so that we can have more secure elections. And in my first quote, it was reported by the Los Angeles Times, without a personal identification card issued to some level of government, you are considered a second-class citizen. You cannot board an airplane, ride a train, you can't get a six-pack of beer or even a pack of cigarettes. You can't open a checking account, and you can't even enter most public or private office buildings, and you can't even attend the NCAA without having a government ID that says you are who you are is who you say you are. And you can't qualify for Medicaid without a valid ID. So, even if you want to enter a school, you have to have a student ID to swipe in the building, and other words, you won't be able to get into the school without your ID. So, if we have to have an ID and personal identification for all these cases, then why can't we have an ID for voting? It's not suppressing anyone. And in my second quote, researchers said that the National Bureau of Economic Research has found between 2008 and 2016 voter ID laws had no negative impact on the registration or turnout of overall in any specific group defined by race, gender, age, and party affiliation, which means basically if you're a Democrat, Republican, or whatever race you are, or whatever gender you are, it has no impact on voter turnouts. And many news outlets have been putting out fact checkers and things that are saying that this is bad and it's going to affect those, but there's more research on that it has no effect on it at all. And this new study argued that we cannot be mobilized against the laws because contradicting opponents who claim that in efforts that there's only to maintain voter turnout, according to the research, voter identification has no impact, like I said. So, voter ID is just a measure that we should take in order to have safer elections. And many democracies have this, and it's strange that we don't right now. Our elections seem secure, but we really don't know that because we don't even have voter ID laws. Anyone can just walk in there and vote. Yes, they have measures that technically check on you and to make sure that you are who you say you are, but a lot of it's an automated system, and potentially there could be an error in the coding and people can slip by and vote twice, and not just one person but maybe thousands of people, which could sway an election in whatever way that they want if they did purposely sway the election. So, in my third quote, USA Today proposed that a national identification card can be issued by the government to all citizens in the United States when they turn 16. This identification would not only serve as a required voter ID card, but someone who is reaching out to vote by age. It is also serves that they are a registered voter, and There are many beliefs that this proposal include one that is appeal to Trump's reforming the virtual wall and better track way to that is not an American citizen. So, basically, Jimmy Carter was trying to implement these laws whenever he was president. Right after he was president, he was trying to implement these laws. And some of them got through, but they weren't on a national or a big state. So, basically, in this final quote, in the case of Indiana, whose voter ID was an effort of 2008 presidential election, there were some data about participation that it was a very good year for the Democrats in general. But the Democratic turnout rose in Indiana when their voter ID law was implemented for that state. So basically, it had no impact. The Democrats and Republicans, mainly Republicans, have been fighting for voter ID laws, and the Democrats have been trying to shut it down. Well, it turned out in favor of the Democrats whenever they had a strong voter ID law.